Chapter 1. The Ship Comes Home. On the 24th of February, 1815, the ship Pharaoh came into Marseille. A man on the shore jumped into a boat and went out to the ship. A young man about 20 years old looked over the side of the ship. He seemed to be the captain. He was the type of man who meets danger without fear. "Oh, is it you, Dante?" cried the man in the boat. "What has happened?" "A very sad thing, Mr. Morel," replied the young man. "When our ship was near Civitavecchia, we lost our brave Captain Leclerc. He turned to his men and gave a quick order. Then he turned again to Morel. The Pharaoh was Morel's ship, and Edmond Dante was first officer. 'We will all die one day, Edmond,' said Morel. 'The goods? They are safe, Mr. Morel. Now come on board. Here is Danglars. He does all the buying and selling. I must look after my ship.' Morel climbed quickly onto the ship and met Danglars. Danglars was about 25 years old. Nobody on the Pharaoh liked him. 'Well, Mr. Morel,' said Danglars, 'you heard about the sad death of Captain Leclerc.' 'Yes, he was a brave and good man, and a good seaman. He was old and wise, a good ship's captain for Morel and Son,' replied Danglars. 'A young man can be a good captain, too,' Morel said. 'Look at our friend Edmond. He works well.' 'Yes,' said Danglars. He looked at Dante. He did not like him. 'Yes, he is young, and he is very sure of himself. When the captain died, we had to take orders from him, and as a result, we lost a day and a half at the island of Elba. We needed to come straight to Marseille.' 'He has to take the captain's place,' said Morel. 'He is the first officer, but it was wrong to stop at Elba.' 'Was the ship unsafe? Did you need to work on it?' 'There was nothing wrong with the ship. We stopped at Elba and went on shore. It was a holiday, not work.' 'Dante,' the shipowner called. 'Come here, please.' 'In a minute, Mr. Morel,' answered Dante. He gave an order to his men. When the ship was safely tied up, Dante came towards Morel. 'The ship is now ready,' he said. 'Can I help you, sir?' Danglars took a few steps back. 'Why did you stop at the island of Elba?' asked Morel. 'I don't know, Mr. Morel. It was Captain Leclerc's last order. He gave me a letter for Marshal Bertrand.' Morel took Dante's arm and pulled him close. 'And how is Napoleon?' he said quietly. 'He seemed very well. You spoke to him?' 'No, he spoke to me,' said Dante. 'He asked, "When did you leave Marseille?" What goods are on board?' He was very interested. Perhaps he wanted to buy the ship. 'I am only the first officer,' I said. 'The ship belongs to Morel and Son.' 'Ah,' he said, 'I know them. The Morels have owned ships for many years. But there was a Morel who was a soldier. He fought with me at Valence.' 'True,' cried Morel happily. 'That was Polecar Morel, my uncle. He was a great soldier, a captain. Dante, my uncle will be very happy about Napoleon. It will bring fire into the old soldier's eyes. You were right to stop at Elba, Dante. But don't tell people about the letter for Marshal Bertrand and about Napoleon. You will get into trouble." "Why?" asked Dante. "I don't know what was in the letter. Napoleon only asked me simple questions. Anyone can answer questions like those." "My dear Dante," said the owner, "are you now free?" "Yes, Mr. Morel," Dante replied. "Can you come and have dinner with me?" "Thank you, Mr. Morel, but I must visit my father first." "Visit your father, and then come to my house." "Thank you again, Mr. Morel, but there is another person that I must see." "True, Dante, I forgot. Of course, the beautiful Mercedes. She came to see me 3 times. She wanted news about the Pharaoh. She has promised to marry me," the young seaman said. "My dear Edmond," said the owner, "that is very good news. Now hurry away to see your father." "Thank you, Mr. Morel. I have a question. Can I leave the ship for 14 days? "To get married?" Morel asked. "Yes, first, and then I want to go to Paris." "Yes, of course, Dante, but come back again in 1 month. The Pharaoh can't sail without her captain." "Without her captain," cried Dante. His eyes were bright, and he was very happy. "Are you really going to make me captain of the Pharaoh? Oh, Mr. Morel, I thank you for my father and for Mercedes." "Good, Edmond. Go to your father, go and see Mercedes, and then come to see me." "Shall I take you to the shore with me?" Dante asked. "No, thank you. I'll stay and do some work with Danglars." "Were you pleased with him on this journey?" "Do you mean, is Danglars a good friend?" "No, we aren't friends. We disagreed one day near the island of Monte Cristo, and he doesn't like me. But he works well. I can say nothing against him." The shipowner watched Dante until he reached the shore. Danglars stood on the ship behind Morel. He also watched the young man as he went away, but he did not look kindly at Dante. Chapter 2. Father and Son. Dante turned into a narrow street and went into a small house. "My dear Edmond," cried his father, "my boy, my son, you are here in Marseille. Tell me all your news." "I have some sad news. The good Captain Leclerc is dead. But I am now captain of the Pharaoh. Just think, I am only 20 years old, and the captain of a great ship. I will earn good money. I can buy you a new house. What is the matter, father? Aren't you well?" "It is nothing," his father said. "You need food and a drink. Where will I find food and drink for you?" "There is nothing in the house," answered the old man. "But I don't need anything, because you are here. When I left, 3 months ago, I gave you plenty of money." Dante said, "Yes, but I paid some money back to our friend Caderousse. He asked me for it. But you gave Caderousse more than half of the money. Why did you do that? Here, father, take this and send for some food." Edmond put all his money on the table. "No, no," said the old man. "I don't need all that money. But here comes Caderousse. He knows that you are home. He wants to welcome you." "Hello? You have returned, Edmond." Caderousse said. "Yes, neighbor," replied Dante. He tried to hide his real feelings. "I am ready to help you in any way." "You are rich now," said Caderousse, looking hungrily at the money on the table. "Oh, that," said Dante. "That is my father's money. But of course you are our neighbor. If you want money, we will lend it to you." "Thank you, but I don't need anything. I met my friend Danglars, so I heard that you were here. I wanted to see you." "Good Caderousse," said the old man. "He is a great friend to us." There was an ugly look on Caderousse's face. "Well, Morel is pleased with you," he said. "Are you hoping to be the next captain of the Pharaoh?" "Yes, I believe that I will be the next captain. But, dear father, I must leave you. Now I must visit another person in the town. Go, my dear boy, and God protect your wife." "His wife," said Caderousse. "She isn't his wife yet. Mercedes is a fine girl, and fine girls have plenty of young men. But you will be captain of the Pharaoh, so—" "My opinion of women and of Mercedes is better than yours," Dante said. "I know that she will always love me." Edmond left the house, and Caderousse joined Danglars. The seaman was waiting for him at the corner. "He isn't captain yet," said Danglars quietly. "We can stop him. Let's go. We will stop at La Réserve and drink a glass of wine there." "Right then," Caderousse said, "but you must pay for the drink." Chapter 3. Mercedes, Danglars, and Caderousse sat at a table under a tree. In a house about 100 meters away, a young girl was at the window. Her hair was as black as night, and her eyes were as dark and wonderful as the shadow of a forest. "Mercedes!" a voice shouted happily outside the house. "Mercedes!" "Ah!" cried the girl, and she ran to the door and opened it. "Here, Edmond, here I am." Edmond took Mercedes in his arms. The golden sunshine of Marseille shone on them. They were together, the only two people in the world. Edmond and Mercedes walked past La Réserve. Caderousse and Danglars were still there. "Hey, Edmond!" cried Caderousse. He got up from his seat. "Are you too proud to speak to your friends?" "No, my dear man," Dante replied. "I am not proud, but I am happy. I was thinking about Mercedes." "When is the wedding?" asked Danglars. "Soon. Tomorrow, or the next day, here at La Réserve. We hope that you and Caderousse will be there." "Tomorrow or the next day. You are in a hurry, Captain," said Danglars. "I am not a captain yet, Danglars," said Dante. "But yes, we are in a hurry because I must go to Paris." "To Paris? Do you have business there?" "It is not my business. Captain Leclerc asked me to finish some work for him." Yes, I understand," said Danglars. And he added, speaking to himself, "To Paris. He is taking Marshal Bertrand's letter there. Ah, I have an idea. Dante, my friend, you are not captain of the Pharaoh yet." He turned towards Edmond. "A good journey," he cried. "Thank you, my friend," said Edmond, and the two lovers continued on their happy path. "Boy," shouted Danglars, "bring me a pen and paper." "It is a strange thought," said Caderousse. "You can kill a man with a knife, but you can also kill him with that pen." "I will tell you what I am going to do," said Danglars. "Dante has just returned from a journey. He stopped at the island of Elba. We are going to send a letter to an officer of the government. We will write that Dante is working for Napoleon. He wants to bring Napoleon back as ruler of France." Danglars wrote, using his left hand, "A friend of the king has information for the king's officers. Edmond Dante, of the ship Pharaoh, brought a letter from Elba to the followers of Napoleon in Paris. You will find the letter in his coat, or at his father's house, or in his room on the ship." He put the letter in an envelope and wrote a name on it: Villefort. "So I have done it," Danglars said. "Yes, you have done it," said Caderousse, "but it is a dirty piece of work." He put out his hand to take the letter. The cooks at La Réserve prepared a wonderful meal for the wedding. Many of the men from the Pharaoh were there, and other friends of Dante. "Shall we start?" asked the sweet silvery voice of Mercedes. "We must go to the church." Everyone in the party stood up and began to form a line. Suddenly there was a loud noise. A man knocked on the door and shouted, "Open this door, in the name of the law." An officer came in. There were 4 soldiers with him. "Where is Edmond Dante?" "That is my name," said Edmond. "Why?" "I can't tell you. Someone will tell you the reason later." "Don't be afraid, my good friends," said Dante. "They are making a mistake. That is all, I am sure." Dante went into the courtyard with the soldiers. "God go with you, my dearest," cried Mercedes, "and with you, sweet Mercedes. We shall soon meet again." Chapter 4. The Judge Villefort, the judge, took a paper from one of the men. He said, "Bring in the prisoner." Dante came into the room. "Who and what are you?" Villefort asked. "My name is Edmond Dante." The young man replied, "I am an officer of the Pharaoh, one of Morel's ships." "Your age?" 20. "Where were you when the soldiers came?" "I was at my wedding." Dante's voice was full of tears. Earlier in the day he was so happy, and now... "It is sad that this man missed his wedding," thought Villefort. But he continued, "Do you work for Napoleon?" "I wanted to join one of his ships, but he lost power." "People think that you are a dangerous man. They say you want to bring Napoleon back to power." "Me? Dangerous? I am only 20. I don't know about things like power. I love my father. I love Morel. And most of all, I love Mercedes. That is all that I can tell you." "Have you any enemies?" "Enemies," said Dante. "Only important men have enemies. I am not important." "True, you are only 20, Villefort said, "but you will soon be captain of a ship. You are marrying a pretty girl. Does someone hate you because you are so lucky?" "Perhaps. I don't know. You know men better than I do." "I received this letter. Do you know the writing?" Dante read it. A cloud of sadness passed over his face. "No, I don't know the writing, but the writer of this letter is a real enemy." "Now," said the judge, "answer me. Are the words in this letter true?" "No," Dante replied. "I will tell you the facts. Captain Leclerc became ill soon after we left Naples. On the third day he was very ill. He called me and said, 'Promise me something. It is very important.' I promised. 'After my death, you will become captain. Go to Elba and ask for Marshal Bertrand. Give him this letter, and he will give you another letter. He will tell you where to take it.' That is what Captain Leclerc said." "And what did you do then?" the judge asked. I agreed. Leclerc was dying. On a ship, the last request of an officer is an order. I reached Elba and I went on shore alone. I gave the letter to Marshal Bertrand. He gave me a letter to take to a person in Paris. I came here, visited Mercedes, and prepared for my wedding. I am going to Paris tomorrow." "Ah," said Villefort, "perhaps you were unwise, but you followed the last orders of your captain. Give me the letter that you brought from Elba. Promise to see me again if I call you. You can go back to your friends now." "I am free then?" said Dante happily. "Yes, but first give me the letter." "You have it already. The soldiers took it with some other letters. They are on the table." "Stop," said Villefort, as Dante took his hat. "Whose name and address are on the letter?" "Noirtier, Heron Road, Paris." Villefort's face went white, and he looked afraid. "Noirtier," he said in a weak voice. "Noirtier. Yes, do you know him?" "No," replied Villefort. "I am a true follower of the king. I don't know men who want to destroy him." "Noirtier wants to destroy the king." Dante began to feel afraid. "I told you, I didn't read the letter. I don't know what it says." "Yes, but you saw the name on the envelope." "Of course I read the name. I had to give it to Noirtier." "Did you show this letter to anyone?" asked Villefort. "Number, I didn't show it to anyone. I promise you." Dante looked at Villefort's face and was afraid. Villefort read the letter. Then he covered his face with his hands. "Oh," the judge thought, "does he know what is in this letter? Does he know my real name? Does he know that Noirtier is my father? If he knows this, then I am in danger." He looked closely at Dante. Then he said, "You cannot leave now. You must stay here for some time. I will try to make your stay as short as possible. The only thing against you is this letter." He took the letter from the table and went to the fire. "Look, I am burning it." "Oh," cried Dante, "you are very kind." "Listen," said Villefort. "You know that I will help you. You will stay here until this evening. Don't answer any questions. Don't say a word about this letter, and don't say the name of Noirtier." "I promise," Villefort called out, and a soldier came into the room. "Follow this soldier," Villefort told Dante. The door closed, and Villefort fell into a chair. "Oh, my father, if people hear about this letter, It will be the end for me. I must make sure that nobody knows about it. Chapter 5. The Prison. The soldier took Dante to a small room. Then at about 10 o'clock, an officer and 4 soldiers took him through the streets to the shore. They put Dante in a boat. Then they watched him as the boat moved away. What is happening? Edmond thought wildly. The judge was kind to me. He told me not to be afraid. He only told me not to say the name Noirtier. And he destroyed the letter in front of me. Dante looked into the darkness. They were going out to sea. They were sailing away from everything that he loved. He turned to the nearest soldier. "Friend," he said, "please tell me where we are going. I am Edmond Dantes, a seaman, and a man who loves cod and the king. Tell me where we are going." "You were born in Marseille, and you are a seaman, but you don't know where you are going. Look." Dante stood up and looked in front of the boat. 100 meters away, he saw the black and frightening shape of the rock where the Chateau d'Elf stands. The prison was about 300 years old. People tell many strange stories about this place, Dante thought. Prisoners go there and never return. Is this the end of all hope? "I am not going to be a prisoner there," cried Dante. "Only important prisoners, enemies of the king, go there. Mr. Villefort promised me. Mr. Villefort told us to take you to the Chateau d'If." The boat reached the shore. A soldier jumped out, took Dante's arms, and pushed him up some steps. He passed through a door, and the door closed behind him. He was in a courtyard with high walls on all sides. He heard the feet of soldiers walking around outside. "Where is the prisoner?" a voice said. "Follow me." Dante followed. The man took him to a room which was almost under the ground. "This is your room for tonight," the man said. "It is late, and the governor is asleep. Tomorrow perhaps he will send you to another place. There is bread and water, and some dry grass to sleep on. Good night." The man left quickly and took away his lamp. Dante was alone in the darkness and the silence. At the first light of day, the guard returned. Dante was standing in the same place just inside the door. The man touched Dante on the arm and asked, "Haven't you slept?" "I don't know," Dante answered. The guard looked at him. "Are you hungry?" "I don't know." "Do you want anything?" "I want to see the governor." The guard gave a short laugh and left the room. The door closed. Dante threw himself on the floor. "What is happening?" he cried. "Why am I in this place?" The day passed. Dante did not eat. He walked round and round the small room. The next morning the guard came back again. "Prisoner," he said, "are you feeling better today?" Dante did not answer. "Be brave, man. Can I get you anything?" the guard asked. "I want to see the governor." "That is not possible," the guard said. "What can I do then?" Dante asked. "You can have better food, if you pay for it, and books, and you can walk around in the courtyard." "I don't want books. This food is all right, and I don't want to walk around. I want to see the governor. You can't. Don't ask to see him. I will always say no. You will go crazy. You think so? I know it. There is a man in this prison. He was in this room before you. If you help me, I will give you a lot of treasure. He told the governor. He was put in a room underground 2 years ago. Listen, I am not crazy, Dante said, and I must see the governor. Oh ho, cried the guard, stepping back. You are going crazy. We will have trouble with you, but there are plenty of places underground. He went out. A few minutes later he returned with 4 soldiers. The governor has sent orders, he said. He turned to the soldiers. This prisoner is crazy. Put him underground. The soldiers took Dante's arms. He went quietly. They walked down 15 steps. Then the soldiers opened the door of a room and threw Dante inside. The door closed, and Dante walked around. He held his hands out until he touched the wall. Then he sat down in a coma. It was very dark, and he could see nothing. The guard is right, he thought. This place will make me completely crazy.
Chapter 6, Underground. Time passed. The chief officer of prisons visited the prisoners' rooms. Is the food good? He asked the prisoners. Do you want anything? The food is very bad, and we want to be free, they all replied. The officer laughed and turned to the governor. Why do we come here? We always hear the same thing. The food is bad. I have done nothing wrong. I want to be free. Are there any other prisoners? Yes, there are the crazy prisoners. We keep them underground. They are a danger to other people. Let's visit them. I must see them all. 2 soldiers took the officer down the steps. The air smelled bad. The darkness was full of the smell of death. Oh, cried the officer. Who can live here? Very bad men. We must watch them very carefully. This was the officer's first visit. Prisoner number 34. Let's visit this one first, he said. Dantes was sitting in a corner of his room. He looked up and saw the stranger with 2 soldiers. This is an important officer, he thought. He jumped up to meet him, but the soldiers pushed him back. The officer thinks that I am crazy, Dantes thought. He looked at the officer. He tried to make his voice quiet and calm. I only want to know what is going to happen to me. Why am I here? Give me your permission to see a judge. Perhaps, said the chief officer. Then, turning to the governor, he said, show me your books. What is this man's crime? I know that you can't free me, said Dantes. But tell me, please, that there is hope. I can't tell you that. I can only promise to ask about the matter. Who gave orders for you to come to the prison? Mr. Villefort. Does he have a reason to be your enemy? No. He was very kind to me, Dantes said. Then I can believe what he writes about you in the prison's book. Yes? The officer left the room and closed the door. But he left something in the room, hope. The officer kept his promise to Dantes. He looked in the prison book and found Edmond Dantes, a dangerous man. He helped Napoleon return from Elba. Watch him carefully. I can't help this prisoner, the chief officer thought. He wrote in the book, Do Nothing. Chapter 7, number 27. Days and weeks passed. Dantes began to think that the officer's visit was only a dream. Suddenly, one evening, at about 9 o'clock, Edmund heard a sound in the wall next to his bed. He listened. Perhaps this is only a dream, too, he thought. But he heard the sound again. He heard something fall and then silence. Some hours later, he heard the noise again, nearer and more clearly. Edmund listened. I know what that sound is, he thought. A prisoner is trying to escape. Edmund wanted to help. He moved his bed, then he looked round the room for a sharp tool. The only things in the room were a bed, a chair, a table, and a water pot. I will break the water pot and use one of the sharp pieces, he thought. He threw the pot on the floor, and it broke into pieces. He hid 2 or 3 pointed bits in his bed. The next morning, the guard came into the room. The water pot fell from my hand when I was drinking, Dantes said. The man was angry with him for his carelessness, but he brought another pot. He did not take away the broken pieces of the old one. Dantes started to work. The stone wall was old and soft, and it broke into small pieces easily. At last he pulled a stone out of the wall. It left a hole half a meter wide. He carefully carried all the small pieces of stone into the corners of the room, and covered them with earth. He put back the big stone, and placed his bed in front of the hole. Later, the guard came with his evening meal. When the man left the room, Dantes started to work again. He worked all night, making a deep hole in the wall. Then he stopped. What is this? He cried. I can't cut through it or move it. It was a great piece of wood. Dantes could not make the hole deeper. Oh, my God, he cried. I want to die. I have lost all hope. Who is the man who can talk at the same time about God and about hopelessness? Said a voice under the earth. Edmund got up on his knees. Ah, he said. A voice, the voice of a man. In the name of God, speak again. Who are you? Said the voice. An unhappy prisoner. Why are you in prison? I did nothing wrong, Dantes replied. They say that I tried to help Napoleon. He wanted to return to France. To return to France. Where is he now, then? They sent him to the island of Elba in 1814. Don't you know that? When did you come here? In 1811. For years before me. Don't do any more work, said the voice. Just tell me, how high up are you? At the same height as the floor of my room, Dantes said. What is behind the door of your room? A narrow room and then the courtyard. Oh? That is bad, the voice said. My plan is wrong. I wanted to break through to the outside wall of the prison. And then throw myself into the sea and swim to one of the islands near here. Cover the opening of the hole in the wall. Do it carefully. Stop working on the hole. Wait until you hear from me again. Tell me who you are, cried Edmund. I am number 27. Why don't you tell me your name? Edmund heard a quiet laugh. Oh, he cried. Please don't leave me alone. I promise that I won't say a word to the guards. I will talk to you again, said the voice. Tomorrow. Edmund closed the opening in the wall, carefully hid the bits of stone and put his bed back in its place. The next morning, when he moved his bed away from the wall, he heard a sound. He got down on his knees. Is it you? He said. I am here. Soon after that, part of the floor of Dante's room fell away. Stones and earth fell down into the opening. Then, at the bottom of the hole, Dante saw the arms and head of a man. The man climbed up into the room. Dante reached his hands out to his new friend. He was a small man, and his hair was white. His eyes were dark, and he had a long beard. He was not strong. You seem very happy to see me, he said to Dante's. Your happiness touches my heart. But Dante's knew that the man was very sad. You worked hard to escape, he said, but you haven't reached the outside of the prison. This is just another room. But there are 3 other sides to the room. Do you know what is outside those walls? One wall is built against the rock. One is against the lower part of the governor's house. If we get out there, the guards will catch us. And this side faces where? They looked at the 3rd side of the room. There was a small window high up in the wall, with 3 strong bars across it. The man pulled the table across the room and put it under the window. Climb on the table, he said to Dante's. Put your back against the wall. And join your hands in front of your body. Then prisoner number 27 jumped up onto the table, and from there onto Dante's hands. And from them onto Dante's shoulders. He put his head through the top bars of the window, then pulled his head back quickly. Finally he said, I thought so. He got down quickly and easily. He moves as quickly as a young man, Dante's thought. This side of your room, said number 27, faces an open pathway. A soldier guards it day and night. It is not possible to escape through any of these walls. Dante's looked at the man. You really want to escape, he thought. And now you know that you can't. So why are you so calm? Then he said, tell me, please, who are you? My name is Fire, the other man replied. I came to the Chateau d'If in the year 1811. Before that, I was in the prison of Fenestrelle for 3 years. But why are you here? As you know, there are a number of small countries in Italy. Each country has a ruler. I wanted to make Italy one great country under one great king. My chosen king tried to destroy me. And now Italy will never be one country. Napoleon tried to make it one country, but he did not complete his work. Poor Italy. The old man's voice was very sad. Can I see your secret path behind the wall? Dante's asked. Follow me, said Fire, and he went into the deep hole in the wall. Dante's followed. Chapter 8, Fire's Room. The 2 friends passed easily along the underground path. Fire pulled up a stone in the floor, and they climbed into his room. Dante's looked around. There is one thing that I still don't understand, he said. How do you do so much work? I work all night. At night? Do you have cat's eyes? Can you see in the dark? No, of course not. But God has given man a mind. With it, we can make what we need. I made a lamp for myself. I get the oil from my food, and it burns very well. They sat and talked. Fire's words were clever and wise. Sometimes Dante's could not understand them. You are very wise. Will you teach me? Dante's asked. I don't want you to get tired of me. A clever person doesn't want to talk to a person who knows nothing. Teach me, and then the hours will pass more quickly for you. Dante's learned new ideas from fire very quickly and easily. He learned about the history of the world, and the English language, and many other things. Time passed. Dante's was much happier, but Fire's health was not good. One day, Fire was in Edmund's room. Edmund was working on the secret path between their rooms. Suddenly, Edmund heard Fire cry out in pain. He hurried to him and found him in the middle of the room. His face was as white as death. What is the matter? Cried Dante's. Quick, replied Fire. Listen to me. Dante's looked at Fire's face and was afraid. Fire's eyes were dark, and there were deep blue circles round them. His skin was very pale. Listen, said Fire. I have a terrible illness. I was ill before I came to the prison. Help me back to my room. Take out one of the feet which hold up my bed. There is a small bottle of red liquid in the hole. Dante's acted quickly. He pulled the old man down into the underground path and took him back to his room. Then he helped Fire onto the bed. Thank you, the poor man said. He was very cold now. Now I must tell you about this illness. When it reaches its worst point, and not before, I pour a little of the liquid into my mouth. He stopped talking. The frightening grayness of death passed over his face. Dante's waited. Then he thought, my friend is nearly dead. He took Fire's knife, broke open the bottle and poured a little of the liquid into Fire's mouth. Then he waited again. Will my friend die? He cried. 1 hour passed, and there was no change. Then at last a little color came into Fire's face. The wide-open eyes showed some life. Fire could not speak, but he pointed to the door. Dante's listened, and heard the steps of the guard. He mustn't find me here, he thought. The young man ran to the opening of the underground path and hurried to his room. Just after he reached it, the guard came in with food. He saw his prisoner sitting, as usual, on the side of his bed. After the guard left, Dante's hurried back to Fire's room. He lifted up the stone, and was soon next to the sick man's bed. Fire was a little better, but he was still very weak. Don't lose hope, said Dante's. You will soon be strong again. He sat down on the bed next to Fire and held the old man's cold hands. No, said Fire. My first illness lasted for only half an hour. When it ended, I got up from my bed without help. Now I can't move my right arm or leg, and there is a pain in my head. Next time, the illness will kill me. Chapter 9, The Story of the Treasure. The next morning, Dantes returned to Faria's room. Faria looked a little better. He showed Dantes a small piece of paper. Half of it was burnt away. Edmund said, "I can't see anything except broken lines and words." "I know what the words mean," said Faria. "But first I will tell you the story of this paper. I was the friend and helper of Prince Spodder, the last of the princes of that name. I was very happy with him. A long time ago, his family was very rich. People often say, as rich as a Spodder, but my friend, Prince Spodder, had very little money. He told me about another Spodder. This man lived and died at the time of Cesare Borgia. Cesare Borgia needed money for his wars, but the country was very poor. Finally he thought of a plan. He asked two famous rich men, Rospigliosi and Spodder, to dinner. Rospigliosi was very pleased, but Spodder was a wise man. Cesare Borgia wants my money, he thought. He will kill me. He wrote a note, then he went to the dinner. There was death in the glass of wine in front of him. If I don't drink the wine, Borgia will kill me in another way, he thought. So Spodder drank and died. Illustration of a weathered, handwritten treasure map fragment from the Count of Monte Cristo, with text detailing a hidden treasure location and instructions. Enhancing the mystery in the English PDF story. Cesare Borgia took all the dead man's papers, and the last letter that Spodder wrote before the dinner. This said, "I give everything to my brother's child, all my money and all my books. Tell him to keep the prayer book with the gold commas carefully. It will help him to remember his uncle." Cesare looked everywhere. There were some gold cups and a little money, very little, and he took those. But he could not find the treasure of the Spodders. Years passed. The famous prayer book stayed in the family, and my friend, the prince, now owned it. Like many people before me, I looked through all the family papers, through rooms full of papers. Where was the treasure of the Spodders? I found nothing. I read the history of the Borgia family. Cesare Borgia took all the Rospigliosi's money, true, but I found no information about the Spodder treasure. I was sure that the treasure was still hidden somewhere. My friend died and left everything to me. He asked me to write a history of the Spodder family. In 1807, a month before I became a prisoner, I was reading some papers. I fell asleep. It was evening when I woke up. The only light was from the fire. I felt for a piece of paper. I wanted to get a light for the lamp from the fire. I didn't want to burn any important papers. But I remembered a piece of plain white paper in the prayer book. I took it and put a corner in the fire. The fire began to burn the paper. Suddenly, I saw yellow writing. I quickly put out the fire, and looked at the paper. There were words on it. You could only read them when the paper was hot. I burnt a lot of the paper, but the last piece is in your hands. Dantes looked again at the yellow writing. And now, said Faria, look at this. He gave Dantes a second piece of paper with broken lines of writing on it. Put the two pieces together. Yes, Dantes said. I understand. But the writing on the second piece is different. It is my writing, said Faria. I thought about it and completed the old paper. When I understood the words, I left immediately. But the government was afraid of me. When I went on board the ship, soldiers took me prisoner. Fire looked at Dantes. And now, my dear man, he said, you know as much as I do. If we ever escape together, half this treasure is yours. If I die here, all of the treasure is yours. You are my son. You were born to me in this prison. God sent you to help the sad old prisoner. Thank you, said the young man to Fire. But we will never have the treasure, because we won't leave this prison. My real treasure is your teaching and your wise words. Chapter 10, The Death of Fire. The days passed. Fire talked about his treasure, and he thought about ways of escape for his young friend. I am afraid that I will lose the letter, he said to Dantes. Limit every word. Then he burnt the paper. Fire could not use his arm and leg, but his words and thoughts were clear. He continued to teach Dantes history and English and other subjects. He also taught him to make things a useful skill for a prisoner. They were always busy. Dantes worked hard. He wanted to forget the past. Aged manuscript detailing a treasure map written on May 25, 1498 by César Borgia, outlining the hidden treasures on the island of Monte Cristo. With instructions for locating it as part of the Count of Monte Cristo English PDF story. One night, Edmund woke up suddenly. He heard a weak voice call his name through the darkness. He moved his bed, took out the stone, and hurried along the underground path. The other end of it was open. It was dark, but he saw the old, white-faced man holding on to the end of his bed in great pain. Ah, my dear friend, said Fire. You understand, don't you? You know that the time has come. Don't say that, cried Dantes. I have saved you once. I will save you again. He quickly lifted up the foot of the bed and took out the little bottle. There was still some red liquid in it. Look, he cried. There is still some in here. Tell me what to do. There is no hope, Fire replied. But you can try to save my life. Do the same thing, but don't wait too long. If I don't get better, pour the rest into my mouth. Now put me on my bed. Edmund took the old man in his arms and put him on the bed. Dear friend, said Fire, you are good to me. You bring me great happiness. If you escape, go to Monte Cristo. Take the treasure and enjoy it. God go with you. Dantes waited, holding the bottle of liquid in his hand. When it seemed to be the right time, he poured a little of the liquid into Fire's mouth. Then he waited. He waited for 10 minutes, half an hour. Then he put the bottle to Fire's mouth and poured in the rest of the liquid. Fire moved. His eyes opened. He gave a little cry. Then silence. Edmund sat with his hand on his friend's heart. The heart became weaker and weaker. And then the old man's body slowly went cold. Dantes went down into the underground path and put back the stones behind him. He was lucky. A few minutes later, the guard arrived. He went first to Dantes' room. Then he went on to Fire's room with his breakfast and some clothes. What is happening in my friend's room? Dantes thought. I must know. He went down the underground path and heard the guards' cries. Other guards came. Finally, One of them said, "The old man has gone to look for his treasure. I hope that he has a good journey. And now we can prepare him for his grave," another man said. "Put him in a simple bag of plain cloth. That is enough for a grave at the Chateau d'If." Then there was silence. Perhaps they have gone away, Edmund thought. But I am not sure, so I can't go inside. After an hour he heard a noise. It was the governor, and there was someone with him. "Yes," said an unknown voice, "Faria is dead." "I am sure that he is," the governor said. "But by the rules of the prison, we must check." Dantes heard more footsteps. People went in and out of the room. Then he heard someone pull a large piece of cloth along the floor. There was another sound from the bed when somebody put a heavy weight on it. "In the evening," said the governor. "At about 10 or 11. Shall we stay with the body?" "No. That isn't necessary. Lock the door." The steps went away and the voices disappeared. Someone locked the door. Then there was silence, the deepest of all silences, the silence of death. Dantes lifted the stone. He looked carefully round the room. There was nobody there. He went in.